What is going on, everybody? My name is Teddy Baldassarre, and in this video, we are going to discuss 4 things to consider before buying a watch. Of course, we can't cover all of the things that you need to consider before buying a watch, and I would love to hear comments down below about other things that you think is imperative for us to consider when buying a watch. However, we're going to jump into some things that I definitely overlooked when I was first buying watches, and I want to share with you all now. So guys, without further ado, let's jump into the video. So first up is knowing the size of your watch and how it wears. And of course, this seems very obvious, but what isn't as obvious are the things that you need to consider about what is going to make your watch fit on your wrist and what are the things that make it not fit on your wrist. One thing that I think a lot of people put a little bit too much weight on is just the case diameter of a watch. Sure, this does have an effect on how a watch is going to wear on your wrist, but the thing to really consider is actually the lug-to-lug width. For me, I personally hate when a watch is falling off the ends of my wrist. I like it fitting nice and perfectly end to end on my wrist. It's not overhanging in any way. That said, that lug width is going to really determine that dynamic there. And that was a big thing that I constantly overlooked. A lot of brands don't really post this on their listings of watches, so you have to do a little bit of research and digging to find it. Another thing to consider is taking a look at photos, knowing your wrist size, and seeing other wrist shots of people wearing a watch on their wrist. This is a great way of measuring it and knowing what that watch is going to look like on yours, and definitely would recommend that to anybody that's considering buying a watch or investing a considerable amount of money in one. Ideally, we would never want to have to sell our watches. When we buy something, we want to keep it for the long haul. However, sometimes we fall out of love with a watch, and this ends up not being the case. So what I wanted to touch on here is the resale value of a watch. Understanding this is crucial. Before you buy any watch, always go on like eBay and all these used sites and know if there is a demand for your watch to begin with. If there are people trading for your watch, putting bids on watches and wanting to actually purchase it, this is a great indicator of whether or not this is a watch you should be buying. And it's always good to have that fallback in case you don't want to keep the watch long term, knowing that there's a market out there, the people that you can sell it to. And a little quick tip for eBay, always don't just check the active listings, check the watches sold or check the items that have been sold. That's going to give you a better indicator of how much people are actually buying these watches for, apart from that listing price, which is always inflated in most cases, as well as seeing the frequency in which they're being sold. Next up it's kind of a two-parter. I wanted to couple these two things together. One is understanding the movement, and then also knowing how much it's going to cost to service your watch. I wanted to couple these two together because I think they fall right in line parallel to this idea. So first, understanding your movement is always crucial. I think this is probably where the most research should come in, especially if you're buying vintage or buying used. Make sure everything checks out. I think having a little bit of knowledge when you're looking to buy a watch is actually a very dangerous thing. You want to make sure that you know as much as possible when you're going to purchase something, and putting a lot of time in understanding the movement, the maintenance cost, this is something that's important as well. However, the other thing to consider is the different movements are going to have different requirements for servicing. So a quartz movement is going to be easier watch to maintain and keep better time than an automatic piece. However, for the reselling purposes, automatics are definitely going to probably demand more in the market. And if you are interested in learning more about this phenomenon and why quartz watches are really not as sought after and they don't demand the same value on the open market as automatic and mechanical pieces do, I did a whole video about this, talking about the quartz crisis and what is the difference between these watches in a video on my channel. So I'll link to that down below if you do want to check it out. The other thing to consider is in-house movements versus like a third-party movement, like an ETA movement. This is a topic I definitely want to dig in more in the future because I think there's upsides to both. Most people, when they think about in-house movements, they're thinking, yes, this is pristine, yes, this is all built in one house, and I think there is more value I think people associate with an in-house movement. The one downside from buying an in-house movement from a less prominent brand is understanding that a lot of these watchmakers are not coming into contact with it every day. So in a lot of cases, they can't really do as much with it. You might have to send it back to the actual manufacturer, and then that allows them to kind of raise the cost for actually going ahead and servicing it. So just something to consider. I'll do more talking about this in the future, but it's always good to understand the complexities of movements and knowing that everything checks out here. And finally, the last thing to consider before buying a watch is knowing your lifestyle. So whenever you're thinking about a watch, think about what are the day-to-day scenarios. Could you envision wearing that watch on your wrist for those scenarios that you're going to interact with on a day-to-day basis. So that was a big thing for me. That's why most of my collection is dress watches, because it does fit my lifestyle better. So doing the simple gut check, is this something I'm going to wear on a weekly basis, a daily basis, is a crucial step before buying a watch. So guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. Be sure to actually follow me on Instagram. I've been trying to do a little bit more posting on there. I've been posting a lot of polls on my Instagram story, and I think it's a better way of interacting with you guys and having a more personal conversation with you all. You can also like direct message me on there, and I always enjoy doing that. Of course, leave comments down below. I want to hear what you guys think about this topic. What are some other things to think about? But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe. Also hit that bell icon so you know when I release content. Until next time, guys, be well, and I will see you all very soon.